is News9 Live. Now, after 4 years, the Supreme Court has begun the hearing on a batch of petitions that challenge the abrogation of Article 370. But even as the Hypothesis Act and the interpretations take place inside the Supreme Court premises, there is a clear turning of the tide that can be witnessed in Kashmir. Since the abrogation of Article 370, the narrative in Kashmir has started to change. As life in most parts of the valley limps back to normal, there is hope for a future away from terrorism and violence. And who is leading this brigade is the youth of Kashmir, who have now become the harbingers of change, from artists to entrepreneurs to young men and women transforming their lives for the better. This, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the first episode of a special 3-episode series that has been produced for News9 Plus. Kartikeya Sharma was there in Kashmir in the year of 2022, Kartikeya, and you filed 3 specific reportage on the way things are changing in Kashmir. Talking about the youth there, the documentary shows you interacting with the artists, for young entrepreneurs. How's the feel like there among the youth and the hope that it brings?
See, there are 2 things. The first is, what did 370 do? 370 broke the political idea of a Kashmiri exceptionalism. But it also did something bigger. It mainstreamed Kashmiri administrative, economic and social life. There were so many things which you couldn't do in Kashmir in terms of infrastructure, in terms of administration, in terms of reservation, in terms of laws which can bring direct benefit to the people.
Right.
So if a lot of people argue that 370 was a highway through which Kashmir became part of the Indian Union, 370 was also a highway which was restricting a perfect assimilation of the Kashmiri youth. Right. So I spoke with the youth and their aspiration, and some of them were categorical. For example, I spoke to a triple talaq victim.
Right.
So if 370 would have been there, the application of the law in context of Kashmir would have been completely different, wouldn't have been there.
Right.
But for that person to accept that it benefited them, opened my eye, because generally we see Kashmir from perspective of politicians, but this series tells you that there is a younger Kashmir, apolitical Kashmir, understand the politics. It's political but away from the politics. So this series is about Kashmir from the eyes of the youth.
Kashmir from the eyes of the youth. Let's take a look at the first part of this series, which you can also catch on News9 Plus as well.
It's the summer of 2022 in the Kashmir Valley. A record number of tourists have arrived post-COVID. But the valley waits to welcome another guest. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, is set to visit Srinagar on the 3rd anniversary of the abrogation of Articles 370 and 35A. Unlike his past visits, there are no calls for shutdowns, no stone pelting, strikes or protests. The narrative in Kashmir is changing. The past 3 years have seen an unprecedented change in the lives of the people of the Union Territory of J&K. The youth of the valley dream of a new future. Startups have now replaced shutdowns. Songs of hope drown the calls for separation. A new era dawns in Kashmir.
क्या चल रहा है, दब रही आवाज यहाँ है, बोला जो खिलाफ तो बोलेंगे लिहाज कहाँ है। बदलेगा लिहाज भी, बदलेगा इतिहास भी, बदलेगा समाज भी, बदलेगा समाज ही, बदलेगा लिहाज भी, बदलेगा समाज भी, बदलेगा समाज ही।
I was like in the peak of my life, and suddenly few things happened in my personal life, and it was a very sharp downfall. Such a downfall that I was into acute depression, in the depression where there were suicidal thoughts. And it was like the things I used to love or like, I gave up on those things. So at that stage, I thought I should do something which I love to do, which I will like feel good for my mind. I was inclined towards pottery or pottery products from the beginning of life, and I used to like these pottery products a lot. They are really available in the shrine areas. I correlated my life with this pottery sector. Flew to Bangalore for some months and I learned it there, and I became potter, first potter from my family. This clay, ये मिट्टी जो है ये कुछ भी नहीं बोलती. It molds in the way you want to mold it, and it soothes you. It is really therapeutic. You just forget about the world. The second life is given to me by the pottery, and it has become so important in my life that after my religion, because religion is something very personal to everyone, after that, if there is something that is pottery, because it gave me the hope to live, and it's something that make me understand the real meaning of life. There are many opportunities now here which can be converted into professions, and people are, youngsters particularly, because of the era of the social media and so much exposure, and because we are connected to the rest of the world now. Recently there were a large number of people from international, from Dubai or from many countries who visited the valley, and there were the stalls installed, and there were many entrepreneurs who were sponsored by them for the initiations and all. So these are the changes, yes, definitely. I believe youth requires the real identity, basically, the love. I guess love can mold anything. You are valued and you are respected. If you're respected, I guess you find your own ways to how to make it big.
हाँ, बहुत कुछ है कहना, अब और नहीं सहना, दम घुट रहा मेरा, अब इधर नहीं रहना। हयात को छोड़ो, यहाँ मुर्दों को ना बख्शा, इंसानियत खा गई ये गुमराही का रास्ता। भूखे दरिंदों ने यहाँ खौफ फैलाया, हैवानियत को देखो यहाँ बच्चों को बहलाया।
2016 में कश्मीर में हालात ख़राब हुए थे, और उसके बाद इंटरनेट तो बंद ही रहा, स्कूल्स कॉलेजेस तो बंद ही रहे, कुछ करने को था ही नहीं, और मेरा सारा अटेंशन फुटबॉल की तरफ गया, यही 7 महीने। उसके बाद इंटरनेट रेस्टोर हुआ, तो अब मैं थोड़ा बहुत पैशनेट हुआ था फुटबॉल के रिलेटेड। मैंने फुटबॉल वीडियोस खेलने स्टार्ट किए। यूट्यूब से मैंने कुछ वीडियोस देखे, ट्यूटोरियल्स होते हैं, स्किल्स होते हैं या ड्रिबलिंग होते हैं। ऐसे में एक दिन वीडियोस स्क्रॉल कर रहा था यूट्यूब पे, और एक वीडियो आ गया कि मैं देख रहा हूँ एक ग्रुप है, वो कुछ फुटबॉल के साथ, मतलब वो फुटबॉल नहीं खेल रहे, वो कुछ ट्रिक कर रहे हैं। उन्होंने एक बकेट लाया और उस बकेट में वो बॉल डाल रहे, कुछ स्किल करके, चिप करके। जब मैंने उनके वीडियोस देखे तो मैंने भी स्टार्ट किया, मैंने रेप्लिकेट किया, मैंने उनके वीडियोस कॉपी किए, थोड़े सिंपल से वीडियोस बनाए, और मैंने रिस्पॉन्स चेक किया इंटरनेट पे। कश्मीर के लोकल मीडिया उन्होंने मुझे फीचर किया, मेरे फुटबॉल ट्रिक शॉट्स को कवर किया, और फिर आगे जाके जब मुझे लगा कि हाँ मैं सही जा रहा हूँ, देन आई कंटिन्यूड इट, और तब से 4 साल हो गए। मुझे पिछले साल तक कोई नहीं जानता था, और पिछले साल से मुझे लगता है कि अब बहुत सारे लोग मुझे जानते हैं, क्योंकि मेरे को ज़्यादा फीचर किया जा रहा है ट्विटर पे, सोशल मीडिया पे। कश्मीर में जो यूथ है, जो टैलेंटेड यूथ है, उनको प्लेटफॉर्म मिल रहा है और उनको सपोर्ट किया जा रहा है। और मैं चाहूँगा कि आगे भी ऐसे ही जो हमारी गवर्नमेंट है या जो हमारी यहाँ पे कश्मीर के लोग हैं, वो सपोर्ट करे टैलेंट को, वो ऐसे लोगों को जो हम कश्मीर को इंटरनेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म पे रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं, मेडल जीत कर ला रहे हैं। अभी मैं ये जो बात बोल रहा हूँ, मुझे नहीं पता आधे लोग हंसेंगे, क्या रिएक्शन देंगे। मेरा एम है कि मैं पीएम तक पहुँचूँ, उनके वो मेरा वीडियो ट्वीट करें, क्योंकि बहुत सारों ने किया भी है। अगर आपने देखा होगा कि आरिफ खान जो चाइना गए थे ओलंपिक के लिए, सादिया तारिक हाल ही में जिनने रशिया में जब वहाँ पे वार चल रहा था, उन्होंने वहाँ पे मेडल जीता, वो कश्मीर से है। तजमुल इस्लाम वर्ल्ड चैंपियन है वो टाइकांडो की, किक बॉक्सिंग की। और बहुत सारे एक आफरीन भी है टाइकांडो की, बहुत सारे ऐसे हैं। क्रिकेट में है अब्दुल समद है, जम्मू कश्मीर से हम बात करें, इमरान मलिक। तो ये बहुत ज़रूरी है इस टाइम पे कि हमारे जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर है मोदी जी, वो ऐसे लोगों को सपोर्ट करते हैं कि आप खुद समझ सकते हैं, ऐसे टैलेंटेड लोगों को होप मिलती है, मोटिवेशन मिलती है, इंस्पायर हो जाते हैं, और वो हमारे लिए मस्ट है। आप अगर मेरा ट्विटर देखेंगे, मैं हर किसी वीडियो पे अपने सिर्फ हमारे जो पीएम मोदी हैं उनको मेंशन करता हूँ, उनको टैग करता हूँ, और ताकि वो मेरे वीडियोस देखे, वो भी शेयर करे। तो बस ट्विटर ये एक मेरे लिए वे है जहाँ पे वो मुझे मेरे तक पहुँच सकते, मेरी वीडियोस तक।
चुप हो जा कब तक सुनूंगी, उठी आज आवाज तो लफ्जों से बंधूंगी। साफ होगी सोच तो साफ होगा समाज भी, औरत एक हिम्मत है सब बदलेगा आज ही, औरत एक हिम्मत है सब बदलेगा आज ही, औरत एक हिम्मत है।
बहुत सारी पर्सनल चीज़ें रही है, मुझे कभी खुद को एक्सप्रेस करना नहीं आया किसी के सामने। मेरे बहुत कम फ्रेंड्स थे और जो भी थे मैं एक्सप्रेस नहीं कर पाती थी खुद को अच्छे से। जो भी आप अंदर से फील करते हो, जो भी आपके इनर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स होते हैं, कभी ना कभी कोई ना कोई ऐसा टाइम आ जाता है व्हेन दे फाइंड आउट अवेंट। मैंने लिखना स्टार्ट किया बट वो सुकून नहीं मिला लिखने से। So then accidentally one day I just made something and next day my friend told कि आपने वो बहुत अच्छा बनाया था. I could feel the pain in the painting. When I came in college, there was this competition on, I guess, Digital India something, and I won a first award on that. So that gave me a little boost. मैं हमेशा जाती थी fine arts, and I used to love watch them, doing stuff, painting, and they used to paint on. I first saw them painting on a fallen chinar, and that was the first time I painted again. And on that chinar, I painted simple lips of a girl, and they were chained. And its caption said, "Congrats, it's a girl." So I just wanted to give a message to all the women out there around the globe that you don't have to be chained, you don't have to be bound, you just have to be yourself. And that is the message in my paintings. I just see myself throughout the years when I check my canvas, I check my paintings. मैं अपना past देखती हूँ, अपनी life देखती हूँ. So I kind of documented my life in the canvas. So जो भी मैंने paint किया, it's revolving around a woman. And at the same time, it's giving a message to everybody out there, every woman out there, कि आप strong रहिए, आपके साथ जो भी हो रहा है, just hang in there a little more. So that is the message. जैसे मेरे काम में एक personal touch है, वैसे ही मुझे लगता है कि लोग आ रहे हैं बाहर, they want to speak, they want to tell the world that this is my story, and this can be the story of many other people around the globe. Because I feel कि एक ऐसा ट्रेंड आ गया है जो सोशल मीडिया पे काफ़ी देखने को मिलता है. कश्मीर में ऐसा नहीं था. आई पर्सनली टेल यू, मेरा बिजनेस भी सोशल मीडिया के थ्रू ही ग्रो हुआ. सो मैंने कभी सोचा नहीं था, कभी डिसाइडेड नहीं था कि ऐसा कुछ करना है, बट जो भी हुआ सोशल मीडिया के थ्रू हुआ. 10 years from now I'll be sitting in my small gallery with a small coffee shop, and I'll be baking some yummy cakes and I'll be painting. Yeah.
हाँ, बदलेगा समाज भी, बदलेगा समाज ही, बदलेगा लिहाज भी, बदलेगा इतिहास भी, बदलेगा समाज भी, बदलेगा समाज भी. In 2015, I was in class 2nd and I worked with Salman Khan in movie Bajrangi Bhaijaan, and it was very honor for me to work with Salman Khan, and I'm a very big fan of him. So उसके बाद I worked as a body double of Harshali Malhotra, which is Munni in the movie. तो मतलब बहुत इंटरेस्ट पूरा एक्टिंग की तरफ चला गया. फिर जैसे मैंने बोला कि मैंने 2nd क्लास में ही हनी सिंह का म्यूज़िक सुना, तो पता चला कि रैप टाइप का भी कुछ म्यूज़िक होता है, हिप हॉप भी कुछ है. तो उसके बाद मैं करती थी रैप. ऐसे स्कूल में कुछ इवेंट्स होते थे कुछ, तो मैं करती थी रैप. बट ऐसा कभी नहीं सोचा कि आई विल मेक इट माई पैशन, मैं इसको अपना पैशन बनाऊंगी, मैं रैपर बनूंगी. मुझे अपॉर्चुनिटी मिली स्कूल की तरफ से ही कि एक इवेंट हो रहा है डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे. सो इट्स अ रैप बैटल 2021. तो मैं गई वहाँ, एंड वहाँ पे 15 बॉयज़ थे एंड आई वाज ओनली 1 गर्ल. जैसे ही मेरा नाम अनाउंस किया कि पहली बार एक लड़की आई है रैप बैटल में, एंड जब मैं गई स्टेज पे सब लोगों ने हंसी स्टार्ट की, बॉयज़ मैन ओवर देयर. तो मैंने अब जैसे अपना परफॉर्मेंस दिया एंड आई सिक्योर्ड द फर्स्ट पोजीशन ओवर देयर. सो वो एक चीज़ थी जब मुझे लगा कि हाँ मैं आगे जा सकती हूँ. पहले जिन लोगों ने मतलब मुझ पे हंसा, जब मुझे पोजीशन मिली, सो दे केम फोटोग्राफ्स एंड ऑल दैट. जब मुझ पे लोगों ने वहाँ पे हंसा, तो उस टाइम मुझे लगा कि आई हैव टू पिक अप औरत. मैंने सोशल इश्यूज को देखा कि क्या हो रहा है क्या नहीं हो रहा, तो वो सारी चीज़ें मैंने राइट डाउन की एंड आई रोट अ रैप विच इज़ औरत, जिसका नाम है कब तक सुनूंगी, उठी आज आवाज तो लफ्ज़ों से बंद। जो वो हंसी थी मेरे ऊपर, शायद वही एक चीज़ थी जिससे मैं ज़्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग बनी एंड मुझे लगा कि हाँ अब औरत को उठाने का समय आ गया। हर एक चीज़ में औरतें आगे हैं। जैसे क्रिकेटर एक है कश्मीर को, उनका नाम है इकरा, जिन्होंने मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा मोटिवेट किया है। तो उन्होंने घर पे बोला मुझे क्रिकेटर बनना है, सो उनके भाई ने उन्हें मारा पीटा, बोला नहीं आप कैसे बनोगी वो है, बट शी इज़ प्लेइंग राइट नाउ फॉर इंडिया। कुछ लोग की है सोच वैसे ही पुरानी, बट थोड़ा समय लगेगा, बट एक दिन सब ठीक हो जाएगा, लोगों की सोच बदलेगी। शुक्र अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, माय फादर, माय मदर एंड आई हैव 2 sisters, so they are very supportive. They always show their support and they tell me, like my father tell me that whatever you want to do it because it's your life and nobody can snatch it. So आप जो भी करना चाहते हो करो, दिल से करो, और आपका इंटरेस्ट है रैपिंग में, आपका पैशन है, तो आप आगे लेके जाओ। चल आगे बढ़, कर तू पूरे अपने ड्रीम्स, सपने होंगे पूरे तो होंगी पूरी तेरी नीड्स। कश्मीर की पायलट नाम समी आरा, बन गई है आज वो आसमां का सितारा। चल आगे बढ़, खोल तू अपनी ये जंजीर, ना कर लोगों की बातें, मर अपनी ही तकदीर। है तुझ में हिम्मत आसमां को छूने की, मिलेगा एक दिन फल जो स्ट्रगल तूने की।
Kashmir narrative has started to change. Earlier, the Kashmir narrative was dominated by terrorism, it was dominated by separatists, dominated by election cycles, stone pelting, violence, and decisions taken in Srinagar and Delhi. But today, the narrative has moved on. The decisions are being taken locally, and the narrative has shifted from bigger political issues to social and cultural realities with which the youth of Kashmir is trying to engage with. And that narrative is making the difference. And that narrative is focused on youth so that they can get integrated with the mainstream. And when I use the word mainstream, I don't use the word Indian mainstream. I use the word national mainstream. And national mainstream is about seamless transition from Srinagar to Mumbai, Mumbai to Chennai, Chennai to Srinagar, Srinagar to Calcutta. And I think that's the integration which the Kashmiri youth is looking forward to engage with, because it is providing them cultural and social space which was not available to them 5 years or even 10 years ago.
Well, Kartikeya, I mean, a fan moment, I would admit here, for not just for the shots that your camera has captured, but also for the characters that you picked up. And they truly are remarkable. A painter, an aspiring rapper, sports person, whatnot. How easy or difficult it is to nurture that kind of idea in Kashmir as of now, aaj ke Kashmir mein? And secondly, how do you see the changing phase as far as the business aspect is concerned?
You see, you know, we are talking when there's a debate in the Supreme Court of India on Article 370.
Absolutely.
This series was done to understand how society changed after Article 370 was revoked.
Right.
You have seen the first part. The first part is about a rapper, a potter, a different person, women, people who are not in politics.
Right.
But there's another part to it: entrepreneurship, business, employment, industrialization. People don't talk about these things in context of Kashmir. Investments. So I explored these issues in the second part, because ultimately, you know, you can have a Kashmiri diaspora throughout India, but you know, Kashmir needs to provide for its own people. You know, Valley has its own limitation. It's 180 kilometers long and 30 kilometers wide. So how can you bring in eco-friendly industries? What you can do to empower people who live in a society which is conservative? So the second part explores a different facet of a Kashmiri life.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, Kashmir, the tide turns, part 2, where we take a look, or where Kartikeya brings us this special report on how startups are mushrooming and how tourists are coming in, thus giving a fillip to the business aspect there.
In the Kashmir Valley, this is the holy month of Ramzan. It is business as usual on Srinagar's busy streets. But this isn't the familiar business seen for decades in Kashmir. Progress is pulling this part of India out of the dark shadows of its past. In the past 5 years, J&K has received fresh investments of rupees 33,000 crores, and 64 startups have come up in the region. The story of Kashmir is changing. New characters and new faces are entering the narrative.
कोई भी नीति या कोई भी योजना अगर सामान्य आदमी को उसका लाभ मिल रहा है तो वही गुड गवर्नेंस.
Make in India project is becoming big.
The government has come up with the industrial development scheme recently.
We have raised around $300,000.
So we have got a boost in that.
In last 12 months itself, we have touched the figure of 51,000 crore of industrial and services investment.
We are the Kashmir's first startup who have raised this kind of amount.
There are many firsts in the Kashmir narrative. 30-year-old Sharma is an example. He's the owner of Fast Beetle, a delivery service in J&K. He converted a problem into a business opportunity.
I was working in an e-commerce company locally in Kashmir. So there I was heading a logistics department. So when I was connected with the farmers and the artisans, so when they got the order, I used to tell them to deliver at my warehouse. So they always tell, we won't be able to deliver at your warehouse. I said, why? They said, there is no local courier company who can pick my stuff at my location and deliver to your warehouse. Then I thought, why don't I start a company where I can help the local people? There was one girl which I still remember. So she was selling some cosmetic products on Instagram. She used to get 2-3 orders in a day. In every business, logistics is a headache. So she started working with us in that time. And today, more than 900 women entrepreneurs are working with us. So we have started with the one merchant. Today we have more than 900 merchants. So we have seen girls who got only 1 order or 2 orders. Today they are getting 10-15 orders per day. And we have started with the one delivery boy. Today we have 60 delivery boys in-house. We have raised around $300,000 in this time. We are the Kashmir's first startup who have raised this kind of amount, and other investors, outside investors have invested in this company. So I think government is trying their best, and I think it's good for the local economy as well and local entrepreneurs as well. They are giving the platform. Everybody doesn't want to give the equity initially. So initially we don't have much valuation. So once the valuation gets done, then that time we can give the equity to the investors. Mumbai has a Mumbai Angels, Delhi have Let's Venture. So I think Kashmir should have Kashmir Venture.
The Kashmiri youth now understands what true prosperity stands for. It flows from an integrated economy and not political isolation. Ubair comes from a family of horticulturists. He did not inherit big apple farms, but nurtured big dreams for himself. He took a loan of 14 crores from the government to build a cold storage unit in the heart of terror-infested Pulwama district in South Kashmir.
Since I am a first-generation entrepreneur, I need some encouragement, kickstart, because setting up an industry in Kashmir is a challenging task. If we compare Kashmir and Bombay or Delhi or any other places, we don't have a level playing field here if we talk about in terms of industries. For example, we have, it's a landlocked state. We don't have a proper accessibility roads. We have climatic challenges. So the cost of capital is huge for us. In our case, we have to fulfill, apples. We have to sell it to the different markets. So it becomes a challenge when, there is no proper road infrastructure. with the coming up of a new policy, it has, there are a lot of incentives that has really helped us, in setting up the industries. So the government has come up with the industrial development scheme recently. It actually helped us in bringing the cost of capital very low, and we are able to compete with the industries across the country. And with these policies, we explored more opportunities, and that has really helped us in setting up our businesses.
The new economic policy of J&K is creating new entrepreneurs and helping the old businesses to expand and diversify. Tariq is not a first-generation Pashmina maker in his family, but he's the first to create a brand of the product that is 1,000 years old. He has shops outside Kashmir. He intends to resurrect the dying art of traditional Pashmina work.
People internationally have started wearing Pashmina shawls, and that has also given a boost to the industry. Recently, I was participating in this Gulf Summit also, where I did the presentation regarding the craft. So I think the demand is there, the potential is there, massive potential is there to export these products. Make in India project is becoming big, and Make in India is all about handicrafts which we create here. So we have got a boost in that also. But I think what is most important is that we need to have proper platform. In a handicraft, we have like a handmade bangle is for 200 rupees, also handicraft. My shawl for 5 lakh rupees is also handicraft. You cannot put them together. So it has to be like, we have high-end handicrafts, we have low-end handicrafts. So it is important that government differentiates them and gives them the right platform where we will have that kind of clientele, where we can export our products, where we can promote our products. One request that I do have to the government, that one product, which is Pashmina specifically, because it has been a heritage of India from the last 700 years. And it is still loved by the people around the world. But we are facing some difficulties in export of this product, because Pashmina nowadays is being wrongly branded as Shatush, because of the testing facilities, because of the wildlife department that is doing. So my request to government is that they should sort out this small issue with it, and we assure you that this could be the #1 exporting product from India.
Integrating Kashmir with the rest of the country was a big task. The policymakers had to get people around the idea of economic rationalization. After months of labor and intense civil society interaction, it worked.
कोई भी नीति या कोई भी योजना, अगर सामान्य आदमी को उसका लाभ मिल रहा है तो वही गुड गवर्नेंस। कॉमन मैन देख सकता है कि उसके गांव में सड़क बन रही है तो उस सड़क के लिए प्रशासन ने कितना पैसा दिया है, काम कितना हुआ है, कब शुरू हुआ, कब खत्म हो सकता है, क्योंकि एक व्यक्ति सारी व्यवस्था नहीं दे सकता है। और इसलिए हमने कोशिश की है कि टेक्नोलॉजी का अधिकतम उपयोग करके लोगों तक चीज़ों को पहुंचाया जाए और लोग ये फील करें कि हमारा भी पार्टिसिपेशन है, हमारा भी काम है। और जब न्यू इंडस्ट्रियल स्कीम आई तो 28,400 करोड़ का इंसेंटिव उसमें हमने भारत सरकार ने हमको दिया। मैं अगर आपको यहाँ से बताऊं कि आज़ादी के बाद से लेकर 6 महीना पहले तक यहाँ कुल प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट 14,600 करोड़ का हुआ है। आज की तारीख में जब मैं आपसे बात कर रहा हूं तो हमारे पास 51,000 करोड़ के प्रपोजल्स हैं। मोर देन 28,000 करोड़ के प्रपोजल्स इंडस्ट्री डिपार्टमेंट ने क्लियर कर दिया है, लैंड दे दी है।
Since independence, in the last 75 years, the state of J&K received less than rupees 15,000 crore as investment in all sectors combined. In last 12 months itself, we have touched the figure of 51,000 crore of industrial and services investment. And these are just not mere numbers that these are MOUs signed, because the MOUs anybody can sign and walk away with that part. These are concrete proposals backed by DPRs and money paid on websites for land allotment. Only in industry and services, we will hit a figure of 75,000 crores this year. So imagine in 18 months, we can make 5 times investment happen in this state compared to last 75 years. That is a transformational impact happening.
ऐसे ही हैंडीक्राफ्ट को जिंदा करने की कोशिश की है हम लोगों ने। जो कश्मीर की कारपेट है, ये हैंड वूवन कारपेट है। मशीन मेड कारपेट और हैंडमेड कारपेट दोनों को एक ही सामान बता के लोग बेच देते थे। QR कोडिंग करा दिया है, पश्मीना की GI टैगिंग हो गई है, ऑर्गेनिक वेजिटेबल्स, एक्सोटिक वेजिटेबल्स, ऑर्गेनिक खेती, ये सब चीजों में मिल्क डेफिसिट स्टेज था ये। अब हम मिल्क सरप्लस स्टेज की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं और केवल मिल्क प्रोडक्शन नहीं बढ़ा रहे, उनकी प्रोसेसिंग का भी इंतजाम कर रहे हैं ताकि वैल्यू एडिशन हो सके। तो मुझे लगता है कि ठीक दिशा में हम चल रहे हैं। अब 80 लाख के आसपास टूरिस्ट आए, होटल में जगह नहीं मिलती, टैक्सी वाला अलग प्रसन्न है कि साहब हम तो सुबह से 5 घंटे का एक सवारी लेता हूं, तब तक आता हूं, खाना नहीं खाता हूं, तभी दूसरी सवारी का फोन आ जाता है। आप अगर डल लेक जाइए तो एक दिन में 3500 शिकारा वाले घूम रहे हैं टूरिस्ट को लेकर के। तो मुझे लगता है कि इसका इम्पैक्ट पड़ा है।
The impact of the new economic policy on J&K is visible. It can be heard and felt through the success stories of the Naya Kashmir.
After the abrogation of Article 370, the priority of Government of India is to unleash cultural, social and economic capital in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The idea is to ensure that the policies which have been lying idle as dossiers or as concept papers are implemented. And the principal driving force behind this is good governance, because it has cut red tapeism, and because of it, now the valley has witnessed new cultural faces, entrepreneurs, new startup firms and big investments which is coming from all over the world.
Kartikeya, obviously the facets, the apple growers to the pashmina makers, and then this hope that you narrated also towards the end. Business-wise, how, your opinion, what was your impression? Is the environment congenial, government support, everything in place?
See, well, business-wise, I think environment is congenial, but the ground situation is slightly different in South Kashmir. South Kashmir witnesses more terror incidents, more terror events. Even the targeting of the bank clerks or army men is in South Kashmir. South Kashmir is an orchard area. Farming takes place.
Right.
North Kashmir is more of a valley. It's an army intensive thing. But in South Kashmir, it's very easily to disappear. I have been in South Kashmir. I have covered Kashmir very well. It's a different terrain altogether. The second part of the story is that, what are the challenges? I think the biggest challenge for Kashmir is its urban renewal. When you go to Kashmir, people have houses, घर होते हैं सबके. अब कोई नहीं बोलेगा मेरे flat में आना. But now since the land is so limited, now flats are being constructed.
Right. We saw that in your documentary.
Flats are being constructed for simple reason because there is no land. Everyone wants a house. So, that concept has to change in Kashmir. So, what is happening is the reuse of the land, renewal of the oldest city of Srinagar. Oldest city of Srinagar is just not the Islamic past. Srinagar also has a Hindu past. Srinagar has various influences. And Srinagar is a very cosmopolitan area in context of the way it was built over a period of time, and it required efforts from many people. So, I would say that these documentaries were not narrated by me. These documentaries have been narrated by the people. The people tell their stories. So, I think the last part of the documentary is about the real economic, modern, urban challenges, because ultimately urbanization is also impacting Kashmir. Apart from urbanization, ecological issues, waste,
Definitely.
Waste collection. And very few people know about that. You know, in Kashmir, Srinagar, you have dogs all over the place. You know, you can't walk in the evening.
Okay.
And reason why? Because when the militancy started, the pickets had to be organized. So what do you do at night? Not everyone gets a thermal wear.
Right.
And night vision devices were absent in 1980s, 90s. Even today,
even
you don't have
rare.
them.
It's rare. Yeah, it's rare.
So people kept dogs. So you have a proliferation. So, you know, there is one part of Kashmir we see, but there is another part of Kashmir which we really need to see.
Yes, and before we actually, bring to our viewers what is plaguing Srinagar. I mean, if this development overdone, what happens? I mean, to see flats and multi-storied buildings in Kashmir, Kartikeya, it's surprising to me. But before that, I mean, before we play that out, I want to hear from you, for my own sake, for my own understanding and for the understanding of viewers, what was the thought when you completed the shoot for this documentary? What was the thought that you left the valley with?
You see, my Taiji was a Kashmiri Pandit. So when the militancy started, my Taiji was teaching Kashmir University. He had to leave Kashmir.
Right.
So I also have different memories of Kashmir because my parents, me, myself, you know, the fun of June used to be to plan something for Kashmir.
Kashmir, okay.
When now so that ended in 1989.
Oh, the visits ended.
The visits ended because they came back to our natal place, Agra.
Okay.
So, you know, when I go to Kashmir, I have mixed feeling. Then as a journalist, when I come number of elections, I saw Kashmir differently. As a foodie Kashmir, I see Kashmir differently. But in this trip, I saw Kashmir differently.
Right.
And I would say that the last part of my story concludes that feeling.
Well, without much ado, I would say the third and the final part of this documentary series, Kashmir, the Tide Turns, aptly named. Let's take a look at how Srinagar, the capital city, is changing.
On the outskirts of Srinagar city, a new vertical housing society is coming up. Something many outside Kashmir would not imagine. Old Srinagar is full of independent lakeside houses, houseboats, and old structures. So, this multi-story community living is new to the imagination of Kashmiris as well. Srinagar's population has more than doubled in the last 3 decades. With an average population growth rate of 2.30%, it has been struggling to accommodate over 16.5 lakh people. The challenges are numerous, and so are the ideas for development. Srinagar is changing for the better.
In the next decade, we will add 1 million people in Srinagar.
Unorganized, unplanned, urban conglomerate.
People are struggling now.
In fact, the problems are outside the old city.
Real estate has become very, very expensive.
That is something which has to happen. We have to go vertical.
We have conceptualized around 170 odd projects under Smart City Mission.
We have to build sympathetically.
Srinagar is an old city. In ancient times, it was a part of the Silk Route. In modern times, the mainstay became fruits, tourism, and saffron. The consequence of modernity was unplanned urban development. There was a rush to Srinagar as job opportunities disappeared in rural areas. Today, the biggest challenge for Srinagar is to become a smart city.
In the next decade, it is anticipated that we will add 1 million people in Srinagar. This is not just people who are born here, but also people who come from the rural areas which surround Srinagar.
People came in, there was a lot of migration towards the city because city had much more amenities, schools, hospitals. People came and started living here. Houses multiplied.
Every city has pressure in terms of both housing as well as for retail and other requirements. Which cannot be shied away with, which cannot be done away with.
whichever direction you take from Srinagar, it's as if it has become a never-ending city. We have made, a sort of horizontal development.
People live in a city, the population grows every year. They have to be accommodated in terms of their residential spaces. Similarly, with rising population, with rising floating population also in the city, both of tourists as well as from the citizens coming from other districts.
Unorganized colonies, unplanned colonies. But even in these unorganized colonies and unplanned colonies, real estate has become very, very expensive. People are struggling now, and because of that, we see a movement towards vertical housing now.
There's again need for more commercial spaces, need for more, places where people can run their offices, people can run their businesses. That is the need for the city.
In 2017, the state government approved the Srinagar Smart City project. This work under Smart City has two parts. Area-based development with an estimated amount of Rs 2,869 crores and planned city solutions with an estimated cost of Rs 765 crores. The construction of multi-story apartments in Srinagar is a seismic shift in urban planning.
Some projects in the private sector, some projects in the government sector which have come up. But even then, it does not meet the demand.
How is this need planned and how is this need rationed for? So we have a Srinagar master plan which covers the Srinagar metropolitan region of around 746 square kilometers, which is beyond the present limits of the Srinagar Municipal Corporation or Srinagar City.
We will see a massive urban expanse in Srinagar, and from Srinagar to Pahalgam or Srinagar to Gulmarg, I think you will have this one continuous urban expanse.
The aim is how do we ensure that the growth of the satellite towns and the satellite cities which are adjacent to Srinagar city, they happen in a more harmonious and planned way.
But we should also preserve the form even in the new structures, or even in restoration of these old structures, or remodeling of these old structures, or repairing of these old structures, so that we save a streetscape. We also save the character of a particular architectural style.
We have conceptualized around 170 odd projects under Smart City Mission. They range from diverse aspects which include riverfront development, urban mobility, urban street development, heritage conservation, information technology, solid waste management, and others. So we're heavily investing in the IT infrastructure, both in terms of having an integrated command and control center, having Srinagar data network, city fiber optic network, to ensure that people have services online, so everything gets digitized, road redevelopment projects, urban mobility projects, street improvement projects. So all those will add up to whether we are talking about the pedestrianization, whether we are talking about ease and accessibility within the city, and they're going to change the Srinagar city in a big and transformational way.
So we have seen a lot of rice fields either taken up for construction-related work or for making of orchards. We will have serious questions related to food security soon. And I hope that with proper planning, intelligent planning, and planning which is connected to grassroots, we can solve some of these problems.
So this argument, what should be preserved and what should not be preserved, has been going on for quite some time. One segment is monumental. By monumental, I mean both public and religious architecture, the shrines, temples. That is something where we should also respect the space, respect the style, respect the form. And that is something which needs to be preserved because we have an image of a space. Then we have houses which are very livable, vernacular houses, river bank, where you have these beautiful houses and they have given a character to the city. So the core area of city is something which needs to be preserved.
So it's a challenge that the city is facing, that both, number one, on one side, how do we accommodate and how do we ensure that infrastructure grows up, which takes care of the growing population, and at the same time this growth doesn't happen in an unplanned way, it doesn't happen in a haphazard way, it is more planned and it's more in line with what the ecological demand as well as what the heritage of the city requires.
Srinagar Smart City project will resolve day-to-day problems of the citizens. Two big issues that Srinagar confronts today are garbage disposal and the uncontrolled dog population. Srinagar needs to reboot itself. It needs to create an equilibrium between the old Srinagar and new Srinagar. Srinagar needs to conserve its heritage, but ensure at the same time that it remains efficient and modern so that the investments continue to pour in.
The ways in which garbage is collected, I think, need to be more scientific. We see a lot of these dogs around these garbage sites. It has been a topic of public attention.
Well, dogs are a very interesting phenomena here. Dogs feed on whatever you throw as garbage, and this has to be a consumable garbage.
These are two issues. One is the solid waste management. So that's what we have been working actively on since the past 1 year. So our garbage collection and transport system is right now working quite efficiently. If you go around the city, you will find it largely clean.
The municipality is trying to make efforts in coming up with smart ways of garbage disposal. We had a problem with landfill sites. There are some landfill sites in Srinagar. There was also a project of making a captive power plant which could generate electricity from this garbage. But unfortunately, a lot of developmental projects are either very slow or remain in paper or red tape for a very long time.
If you look at the garbage or the solid waste management perspective, that we're actively working on. We are also looking at these underground smart bins to be installed in the city. We're going to have these litter bins in every market and every place in the city, so people don't have to throw it. And my sense is that for the solid waste management system, over the next few months, we'll be quite self-sufficient, and this Srinagar will be one of the best models and places in terms of solid waste management.
Second aspect is we have not planned for control of dog population. And the castrating plan which they have, by a normal calculation which I read somewhere, is that at the current level of estimated dog population, it will take 15 years to remove that calculation, even if you don't factor in the growth and new births which are taking place.
We need at least a facility of around 200-250 sterilizations per day. That will, that will come up to around 60,000 sterilizations per month. So what we have now done is at another two places, we are creating two new facilities for this animal birth control and anti-rabies vaccination. The work has already started at both the places. And my sense is that in the next 2-3 months, the facilities would be ready. And after that, we'll start this mass-scale sterilization program in the city.
Rapid urbanization of Srinagar has created its own problems and challenges. One of the biggest challenges in front of the administration is to persuade people to multi-story apartments. In Kashmir, everyone expected to live in a house. That was the reality post-independence. But now, the land has become very, very expensive. It is for this reason, many Kashmiris or many residents of Srinagar will have to move to multi-story apartments because the planned urbanization desires so.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing that